Well, of course, we've seen throughout this pandemic different responses taken, the likes of Wales and Scotland to England, with, of course, many fleeing socialist rule over New Year to come to England to have a party. But this has been underlined once again by a move from the Scottish Conservatives when it comes to Boris Johnson's leadership. Now, we saw yesterday, I reported, Douglas Ross, leader of the Scottish Tories, calling for Boris Johnson to resign. However, very few MPs are outwardly calling for Boris to go. However, when you look at Scotland, the situation is very different. For instance, look at the front page of The Scotsman today. Why Johnson Has to Go Now, opinion piece by Murdo Fraser, a Scottish Conservative MSP in the Scottish Parliament up there. And so as you've got very few Conservative MPs in Westminster calling for Boris Johnson to go, you've had this wave of MSPs, Tory MSPs, calling for Boris Johnson to go. And it's a stark contrast. As Andrew MacDonald highlights, after Douglas Ross made his call as leader of the Scottish Tories for Boris Johnson to go, initially there was around 9 Scottish Tory MSPs, almost a third of the party, calling for Johnson to go. As I mentioned, Murdo Fraser, opinion piece, Boris Johnson has achieved much as Prime Minister, but he must resign. You then had a whole series of other Conservative MSPs saying that Boris has to go. Just look at Megan Gallagher. I fully support Douglas Ross and his calls for Boris Johnson to resign. It is the right call. Jeremy Balfour, MSP, saying Douglas Ross is absolutely right. The Prime Minister has betrayed the trust of the public and he must resign immediately. Andrew MacDonald also reporting that Stephen Kerr, the chief whip for the Conservatives in Holyrood, making it 16 and counting Conservative MSPs who called for Johnson to go. Stephen Kerr saying he supported what his colleague Douglas Ross had said. And again, Andrew MacDonald later updating the tally to 2 more declared. So it looks like 25 Scottish Conservative MSPs calling for Boris Johnson to go. In fact, it's even been reported that a Scottish Conservative MSP told the BBC that every single one of the 31 Conservative MSPs in the Scottish Parliament back Douglas Ross and want the PM to quit. Quite extraordinary, isn't it? That you have that contrast, reportedly, of every Tory MSP in Scotland wanting Boris Johnson to go. But as I said, very few MPs publicly calling for the PM to resign. Now, as you might expect, this has caused some friction. Jacob Rees-Mogg was on the airwaves saying Douglas Ross, again, this is the leader of the Scottish Conservative Party, Jacob Rees-Mogg describing him as quite a lightweight figure. And so if Boris Johnson isn't ousted, I think Boris will be there until at least the May elections this year. And in all likelihood, I actually think Boris Johnson will still be leading the Conservatives into the next general election. But here's the question. Where does that leave the Scottish Conservative Party if you have every single one reportedly and around 25, I think, publicly declared Conservative MSPs calling for the PM to go? Where does that leave them in terms of campaigning? It all underlines once again how politics is shifting. I reiterate my call that when you have a Scottish Parliament, a Welsh Parliament, a Northern Ireland Assembly, surely we should be looking at an English Parliament, a distinctive voice for the English. And as for where this leaves the Scottish Conservative Party, with Boris Johnson, who I think in all likelihood will remain and lead the party into the next general election, well, could we see a split here? Could we see a breakaway from Scottish Conservatives? Let me know what you're making of all of this, guys. Who do you tend to side with? Douglas Ross and his call for Boris Johnson to resign, or do you still back the PM? Let me know in the comments below. As ever, I'll keep bringing you the very latest, so make sure you have whacked this video a quick thumbs up. It really does help me out. Please do hit subscribe and the bell so you don't miss my next video. And of course, thanks for watching.